If you're listening to this in the car, I'd like to suggest you do the following experiment. Every time you get to a red light, press pause on this program and then just stop, concentrate on the light and waiting for it to be safe to go. And just think about your life in general while you're doing that. Concentrate, of course, on the road and the signal. Wait for the green signal. Or wherever you Americans have, you have a big light up thing that says walk. I've never driven in America, I've only walked, but I presume motorists in America have a big sign that says drive. And of course, you just drive. You literally just drive. You have these automatic cars. You have a lever. One way is drive and the other way is not drive. So you get to a red light and you move it to the not drive position. You wait for the drive light. I presume it's green. That's an ignorant assumption on my part. I just realised. I take that back. Because over here, when you're crossing a road, if you're a pedestrian, there's a red silhouette of a person. That's for stop. And then there's a green silhouette of a person walking, and that's for go. And I just assumed that the walk signs in America are green, which I've just realised they're probably not. And I was just assuming that based on nothing, based on not even thinking about it. I've been to America several times. I should have memorised all this shit. But no, anyway, if you're listening to this in your car, you get to a stop sign, not a pedestrian stop sign, a motorist stop sign or a red light or whatever you have, press pause and just think for a minute there. Just think. Think what's happening here now. What's really happening? I know what's happening on the face of it. On the face of it, what's happening is that I'm in the car and I'm stopped waiting for the legal signal to go and tell me that it's probably safe to go. And even if it's not safe to go, it's legally safe for me to act as if it is. And that if I crash into someone now, it'll be legally their fault and all that. And just think beyond that. What's behind all that? Because imagine that what you're seeing out there is like looking at an operating system. When you switch on a computer and you see a start button and you see some icons and you see a little arrow that you can move around. That's all just decoration. Look behind that. Behind that is all these ones and zeros and zeros and ones and zeros. And the same is true of the world at your stoplight. There's all zeros and ones and zeros and ones and zeros behind that. Now, on a traffic light, the stop would be 0 and the go would be 1. That's how binary works. And then the corresponding lights for the other direction, stop would be 1 and 0 would be go, because they're the opposite, because they're stopped when you're going. Now, how does that work exactly? Because that doesn't seem to make sense to me. On a binary system, 0 is off and 1 is on. But you have traffic going the other way. In fact, it's not necessarily even going the opposite direction, so it shouldn't be opposite. Some of that traffic that you're having to yield to while you're stopped is going perpendicular to you. It's going across the junction from that side road to that other side road. But your light is 0 for stop and 1 for go, but their light is 0 for go and 1 for stop. I suppose that's why they have to put a sign over the light that says stop or go to interpret it. Because if they just had 1 or 0 on their light and 1 and 0 on your light, it would mean a different thing for each of you. It would be very confusing. It wouldn't work. So that's why we have the stop and go thing over it. There's a light there. It's on. The one, maybe that's not how it works at all. I don't know. I'm probably being a little presumptuous. Gives you pause for thought anyway. Anyway, once your light is clear to go, you can unpause this and continue listening. And enjoy the show.
Into your head, into your head, into your head, into your head, into your head.
Today's episode of the podcast, it's taking quite a lot of time to, if you don't mind, I'm going to interrupt myself there for a moment. Because that's unlistenable. I think you'd agree. That's unlistenable bilge. It's insulting to you to ask you to listen to that. So I'm not going to ask you to listen to that gimmick, talking extra slow and talking some shit about it. Absolute nonsense. That's something a child would come up with. If your child made a podcast, they would come up with some bullshit like that. Your stupid child would come up with some bullshit like that. And they'd expect people to go, oh, look, that's a great little opening gimmick. It's like the opening on Saturday Night Live where they do a funny bit and we go, oh, this is great. And then they start up the music and everyone applauds and we're all excited about what's coming up. And someone goes, live from New York, it's Saturday night. There's some weird fellow with hair and a guitar. They have a little opening sketch. They have the kid out of Home Alone. Now, I haven't watched Saturday Night for some time, but they used to have the kid out of Home Alone. He'd be promoting the new Home Alone movie, so he'd be presenting it. And they'd be in the sketch. And they get to the end of the opening prelude sketch, and he'd look at the camera and he'd say, live from New York, it's Saturday night. And everyone would go, yay, it's Saturday night. We know what time it is now. Well, it's 11:35 on a Saturday night, and you're going to be stuck in that theatre for an hour and a half now. You're going to have to get home on some godforsaken hellhole subway at 1 o'clock on a Sunday morning. I hope you're ready for that. Anyway, McCauley Kulkin would look into the camera and say, live from New York, it's Saturday night. And everyone would go, yay, we're all excited now. And they'd show the Saturday Night Live bandleader. Weird looking fella. Yeah, he has hair and he has a wrinkly face that looks a bit like, not the main murdery fella on American Psycho, but his friend and colleague who looks a bit like him. He has the big muscular face and extremely wide mouth for some reason. They do workouts with their mouth or something, I don't know. But he looks a bit like him. The other fella in American Psycho. And he's been on it for about 80 years. At least he was on it last time I saw it. I remember the other thing about the McCauley Kulkin episode that I saw. They did the opening theme tune and then they'd say, here's your host, McCauley Kulkin. And McCulkin comes on. He's about 6 at this stage and he keeps going, thank you, thank you, thank you. And nobody's trained him out to just get on with it. He thinks you have to keep just going, thank you, thank you, thank you, and wait for everyone to stop politely applauding. And the problem is this audience. It's Americans. And Americans at TV audiences, they don't stop applauding. You have to know when to start talking. So this incompetent child who doesn't know how to start a talk show or a live theatre television sketch show, he just keeps going, thank you, thank you, thank you, and wastes about 10 minutes of the programme while everyone cringes and goes, you just get on with it. Read the teleprompter and get on with it, and then they'll sit down and stop. But no, maybe it's just an ego thing, I don't know. Maybe he's thinking, I'm going to lap up all this attention now, because 25 years from now, my brother is going to be in that thing with all the swearing and the Scottish old fella with the beard. And I'm going to be just appearing on people's podcasts. And I don't mean my own podcast. I mean I do. I think McCauley Kulkin has a podcast. This isn't it. This isn't Macaulay Culkin's podcast. Obviously, he's being discussed on it, of course. I'm discussing the Macaulay Culkin of the past. Macaulay Kulkin, the child, is not on any podcast. So I assume he doesn't come on and say, here's an episode I recorded 25 years ago when I was a child. We were waiting for the right technology to put it out. I hope not, anyway, because I'm going to sound ridiculous. So I hope Macaulay Culkin isn't one of those podcasters who started making podcasts before it was invented. Like Frank from the Overnightscape and Static Radio. They all started making podcasts before there was a feed system and they used to put it up on websites. Maybe McCulkin started making them even before that. And he didn't even have the ability to put it up on the website of Alleyguine because he was a child. Macaulay Kulkin was worse off than those podcasters because he didn't have the ability to self-publish. You can't just go and make your own movie. You have to wait to be discovered. You have to get your parents to bring you along to something and say, hello, please discover my child. Michael Jackson, please discover my child and put him in a video. Oh wait, was Michael Jackson after Home Alone or before it? I don't know. Anyway, suffice to say, live from New York, it's Saturday Night Live. And now here's your host, McCauley Kulkin, or his former self, his younger self. He's probably ashamed of his younger self now, is he? Most of us are. I have pictures of myself as a child, just sitting on the sofa, doing nothing with a bear and a toy dog beside me, just looking like an idiot, taking up space and doing nothing. I have another one from the same era of me eating cornflakes. Absolute nonsense. It's what it's like to have been a child star, except you have public pictures of it that people have seen before you even had control of it. Can you imagine how ludicrous life that would be? No, you don't want that. Don't make your children be child actors. If you're going to make them be child actors, put them in something that no one's going to see. Put them in some sort of underground production that's never going to see the light of day. Maybe it's sold as a pirate thing, I don't know. Not the Pirates of the Caribbean, because that's shit. That's shit. I'm not saying don't put them in Pirates of the Caribbean, because then that'll get too much exposure and you don't want that. No, don't put them in Pirates of the Caribbean because that's shit. I despise Pirates of the Caribbean. It's a terrible thing. I hate it. I don't like it at all. My wife likes it, so I'm sure it's fine. My wife also likes Harry Potter. I like the last 3 or 4 Harry Potter movies, and by like I mean tolerate. I was sitting in the cinema one night watching either the second last or third last Harry Potter movie. I think it was the second last. The last book was done in 2 parts, so I think it was part 1 of the last book. And Harry and that woman who he went to school with, and the fellow with the red hair, for some reason they're camping in the wilderness somewhere. And for some reason, that woman who went to school with Harry is worrying about shit. And he decides for some reason to dance with her. They play this song called Oh Children. I'd never heard it before, but I searched for it on my way home in the car. Don't worry, I don't drive. My wife drives, I don't drive. And even if I could drive, wouldn't really matter if I was Googling stuff while I drive, because I can't see past the dashboard anyway. If I'm going to drive a car, which I'm not, I might as well be Googling stuff, because I can't see the road, so don't worry about that. I know I Googled and it turned out the song they were singing was Oh Children by Nick Cave. Now Nick Cave, people in this part of the world know him as being that fucking lunatic. That fucking lunatic who did a whole album of murder ballads and did that thing with Kylie Minogue about a wild rose. And I used him. He did the song about children. It was quite a good song. I've listened to it many times since. So at least something came of that. I know he was already very famous at the time, but a lot of children probably Googled that. I said, I wonder what that song's from. Is it from the K-pop people? Because you hear about these K-pop people. There's these pop bands in South Korea, and they're all robots or something, and they're made from automated paper cutouts or something. On children's television, when I was young, they had arts and craft programs. You had a big sheet of paper, you'd fold it in eight times, and then you cut the shape of a person out of it. But because it's folded out, you're cutting the shape of 8 people out of it. And that's how they make a K-pop band. So people watching Harry Potter nowadays probably come across that song and they say, oh, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Is that one of those K-pop bands? Doesn't really sound like one, to be honest. Because they're not usually called someone's name and the somethings. No, they're called something like Boy Cat or Girl Band 4 or something, or the Overexcited 7. They're not called Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. Well, in this case, it was called Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. And they probably looked them up and thought, what in the name of Christ is this? This fella here. And he's got even darker since then, because his child died or something. He's making songs about that. Well, that's okay. Nick Cave doesn't owe your children a cheerful song just because he appeared in their movie years ago. That's not how it works. Anyway, that's the end of this interruption. Back to the ongoing segment. My head. No, it takes a while to get going. But I'm also adding to it today by doing this speaking slowly thing. And I'm curious. People listen to podcasts at different speeds. I don't. But I listen to audiobooks at lower speeds sometimes. And then sometimes I go into the podcast section of my audiobook app, which happens to have my own podcast in it. And then I inadvertently listen to my own podcast at reduced speed. And this is what it sounds like. Except if I do it with this episode, it'll sound even slower. So that's interesting. I'm losing patience with this now. And I'm sure you are too. I know what you're thinking there. You're thinking, wait a minute. He did that thing where he started off talking very slowly like this. But then he did a thing where he interrupted himself to say, no, we're not going to listen to that. That's unlistenable. But then he ended the interruption and then just let the slow talking thing continue that he was supposedly rescuing us from. Well, you've misunderstood there. I didn't say I was going to stop it and save you from it. I just said I'm going to interrupt myself there for a moment. In fact, I haven't checked, but I imagine I probably said, if you don't mind, I'm going to interrupt myself there for a moment. Because that's what I used to do years ago. I used to do this all the time. I'd record a segment, and then I'd record another segment to put in the middle that would say, if you don't mind, I'm going to interrupt myself there for a moment. I'd interrupt myself, but I'd always end the interruption and then you'd hear the rest of the segment. Now, you might have some issue with that. That's called not wasting. I recorded that slow segment. I'm going to use it. But I put a thing in the middle to make it more palatable. I turned it into a sandwich where the slow, intolerable segment was the bread. So you enjoy the filling. And then you come out of the filling and then you taste the bread and you think, oh, I liked what's inside the bread. It's called waste not, want not. So yes, I did go back and finish the rest of the segment that was me talking very slowly. But I turned it into the bread of a sandwich. And I think the filling was very substantial. There's a reference coming up either in the upcoming segment or in a previous segment or in a later segment. Or a discarded segment, which I think is less likely now. If we're making another segment in which I reference this segment, I'm hardly going to discard it. I hope not anyway. It took me long enough to make. It better be usable. I'll be very disappointed if the segment I'm referring to here ends up being discarded as unusable. Not least because I'll have been the one who discarded it. I'll be very disappointing. I'll be both the recipient and the discarding, because I'll have gone, oh no, this won't do. This is very disappointing. I'm going to have to discard this. And then I'm also going to have to listen to myself thinking that and thinking, oh Christ, he's discarding my segment. He's disappointed in me. I know it's me. I'm disappointed in me. But no, I'm the... If you read all the latest thinking on consciousness and the brain, you hear some people say, us advanced species, not only have we got consciousness, we've got self-consciousness. So we're aware of our own thoughts. We're having thoughts, which anyone can do. But we're also thinking about the fact that we're having thoughts. So if I say, this thing that I've recorded here is shit and unusable, there's another me in there listening to that thought going, oh, the me who's the brain here is disappointed and he's having a bad time. That's sad. That's disappointing me now as well. So there's two of us who are disappointed in it, and both of us are me. So it's double. And that's supposed to be an advanced feature of an advanced consciousness. No, thank you. I don't want that. I'd much rather have just normal consciousness and not self-consciousness. Normal consciousness is where you're like a dog, you go around and you go, oh, that smells like shit. Oh, that looks like rain. Oh, that's a cat over there. There isn't another dog in there thinking, oh, I've noticed the rain and oh, I've enjoyed sniffing that or oh, I've hated sniffing that. No. If there's a self-consciousness of me here now, all he's going to be doing is thinking, oh, look, there's me thinking about the fact that I'm worrying. That's interesting. And then there's a fourth me going, oh, isn't that nice? That's cute. There's me being interested in the fact that I'm worrying about the fact that I'm distracted or whatever it was. I've lost track of it now. I've lost track. I could have built that up into 10 me's and turned it into a thing. But no, I don't have the concentration for that. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, no, there's no limit. There is a limit, though, apparently. There is a limit. What was this segment even supposed to be? Hold on. I started this segment to say something about another segment, didn't I? Something about being disappointed in myself or something. I'm sure it'll all make sense when you listen back. Once upon a time, there was a dog. A dog. A dog. A dog. Now, I know you're thinking, doesn't it usually go once upon a time there was a dog? Well, yes, I do. That's very astute of you. I do usually do that. Maybe I'm just growing up. Maybe I'm growing up, and maybe that's what it is. I'm growing up. Well, I'm not telling you what age I'm going to be next month, but I'm going to be an age next month that's older than the age that I was 11 months ago. I suppose that's obvious, isn't it? That's obvious. It's the same as true of you. You're going to be, well, whenever your next birthday is, you're going to be older than you were the previous year. In fact, you're going to be older than you were the previous day. Don't fool yourself. You're getting older every single day. Every day you're getting older and older and older and older and older. And every day time is going faster and faster and faster. Every year that you age, every year is going by faster and faster and faster. And if you live long enough, you're not going to enjoy it because the time is going by so fast. You won't even get to think, oh, look, I'm age 134. Oh, wait, I'm 135 now. Oh, no, I'm 150 now. You won't even have time to blow your candles out. I don't know what happens with oxygen and candles and fire, if there's some sort of time anomaly because you've lived too long and it just keeps accelerating and accelerating. But are you even going to be able to blow out the candles if time is going that fast? I don't know. I don't know. You'd have to ask someone who's into chemistry about that. Or maybe the fire brigade. Because the fire brigade probably have a laboratory somewhere where they work on that. What's going to happen when people live longer and longer and longer, and every year time goes by faster and faster and faster? It's going to get to the point where some of the things they do are going to be dangerous just because of how time interacts with chemicals and all sorts of things. Or even you're going to have time to, they put on the kettle and then before they even remember that they've put it on, a year has gone past, so the kettle has been boiling for a whole year now. That could destroy whole cities. You can't have people living too long, no. Until the fire brigade research laboratories does something. Every advertisement on the television when I was younger was for the Laboratoire Garnier Paris. And they're working on absolute bullshit, like how to make your face look like it's aging more slowly. We need ads for the fire brigade emergency services laboratories in conjunction with whoever does the aging stuff. Maybe they could work on the cream that you put on your face that's some sort of fireproofing. Instead of the aging cream, get something that's anti-fire. Because we need to make old people less flammable. Anti-flammable cream. Anti-inflammatories, I suppose. But that's not the same thing. We probably have to call it something else as well. That's the other thing. We can't call it anti-inflammatories. We are trying to stop stuff from going up in flames, but anti-inflammatories is a different thing. So that's going to be a problem as well. We're going to have to create a whole new language. I suppose 2 new words or 1 new word isn't a whole new language. I suppose it's not. beyond the possibilities that we get a grip on this stuff. We've managed to create flying cars. Surely to Christ we can get a grip on aging. If we can manage to live to 180, surely we can manage to not burn everything down. I suppose there's that. Suppose we'll figure it out as we go along. I shouldn't worry about this too much. I shouldn't worry about this too much, and nor should you. So if you're listening to this and it's causing you to worry, don't. This podcast is not in the things to worry about section of your podcast directory, you'll notice. If it was, then it wouldn't be by me. I wouldn't make something intentionally for people to worry about. That's not a thing to do. I make entertainment, not things for you to worry about unnecessarily. If any of this has caused you to worry, it's all being a misunderstanding. So just go back through your brain and go, oh, that thing I was listening to, it's all a misunderstanding. Let's just say I misunderstood it. I don't know what I misunderstood about it or what the misunderstanding was, but that's what makes it a misunderstanding. I failed to understand it. It's not really a failure of you at all. Evolution hasn't got you to the point where you can think about these things. It's not a failure on your part at all. We're standing on the shoulders of joints, so if you failed at something, it means the joint shoulders you're sitting on have failed at something, and they're probably not even joints yet, so they've failed. I don't know why they're selling themselves as joints when they're not joints. Maybe they've just been told they are. I hope you haven't told them that they're joints. Maybe you've inadvertently given them the impression that they're joints by standing on their shoulders. I suppose that's a possibility. That's probably what happens to parents a lot, especially fathers. They let their kids climb up on their shoulders when they're young and stand on their shoulders. And that gives the children the impression that they're standing on the shoulders of joints, as the expression goes. So they probably think their father is a joint, and not just in the physical sense of the word, in the sense of being a genius and having achieved so much. That's a problem. That's the problem. Your child thinks you're good. You have to do something about that. Stop giving them that impression. Don't put them up on your shoulders unless you create some new analogy. If you're going to do that, tell them I'm putting you up on my shoulders, but it's not to pretend that I'm a joint. In fact, it's to pretend that you're a joint. Because if you're up on my shoulders, use the top of my head like a table and put your hands on my head, and then your head will be up above mine. So you'll be the joint, son. So you're sitting down and using the top of my head as a little picnic table. If you get one of those hats, you sometimes see in cartoons, you see Homer Simpson with a hat that has 2 cans of beer and a straw attached to it. Like that, goes on the father's head, but it's the picnic table. It has a slot for a plate of food and maybe a little glass of water or something, so the child can have a meal while sitting on their shoulders. And you'll say, no, it's not about being a joint at all. Just think of me as a picnic table. You're not standing on the shoulders of joints. In fact, you're not standing at all, you're sitting. People like picnic tables that are natural. When you go out to a scenic forest car park, you have these picnic tables and they're always made out of logs and natural wood. There's people like that. Well, what could be more natural than your father's skull, who's still alive, hopefully, and you're sitting up on top of his shoulders? I used to sit on this sofa where the cats would like to sit on the back of the sofa, and sometimes they'd forget what was the back of the sofa and what was my shoulders, so they'd find themselves resting their paws on one of my shoulders and watching the world over my shoulder. Be a bit like that for the child, I suppose. We've a lot to get on with today. Items that need to be attended to. Issues that need to be addressed. We're positively moving to the seams with topics. We've got topics coming out of this mouth. This mouth. Now I know what you're thinking there. You're thinking he's done this before. He says topics coming out of this mouth. Well, that's true. I've also done at least 3 times this year topics coming out of my arse. Would you prefer me to do that? I don't think you would. Well, you'll claim that you don't want me to do that. If I do that, you say, oh no, don't do that. But when you listen to this, you'll think, I like when he does topics coming out from my arse. I think it's quite hilarious. But no, you won't admit that. You won't admit that because you worry too much about what people think of what you listen to. And if you're playing this in your office and I go for the 4th time this year, which is what it would be if I did it, I've got topics coming out of my arse. you'd immediately reach for the volume button and you turn this down. And of course, this would be a nightmare for you because you can't find the volume button. You're listening to this on YouTube on your office PC or something. There isn't a readily accessible volume knob on the computer terminal in offices. Hopefully you're listening on earphones. I say hopefully. I mean hopefully for you. You're hoping that if this ever happens, you're listening on earphones. I'm not. I'm hoping you're listening to it on the PC speakers and the whole office is hearing it. That's being piped through the whole office building to several thousand employees. Because I want this thing to have more listeners, not less. You're limiting me when you listen to this on earphones. You are. You're going, I'm so ashamed of listening to this shit that I want it to be limited. I'm going to put an earphone in one ear and another earphone in the other. Like a stethescope. Listen to this fella's heart. I'm listening to him pour out his heart and soul. Every bit of creativity he can find inside his body, including his arse. And I'm listening to that in my earphones because I don't want anyone else to have access to it. You're listening to my heartbeat, but it's coming out in the form of me saying things like topics coming out of my arse. Are you sure you're a real doctor? Are you real at all? According to the stats, there's a few people listening to this, but I think you're all made up. I think you're just a Google bot. And you won't mind me saying topics coming out of my arse then. You won't, because you're just a bot. You won't mind. Doesn't affect you. It just flows right through you. Doesn't affect you positively or negatively. You're just a program. Anyway, we've a lot to get on with today. Items that need to be attended to. Issues that need to be addressed. Topics. Oh, topics. We've got lots and lots of topics. We're positively booming to the scenes with topics. We've got topics coming out from under my fingernail on my right forefinger. Now let's have a look at this. I'm just assuming now, I haven't actually seen it. So I'm going to get my magnifying app and have a look at this finger. No, that's not it. Which finger are you? Oh, that's too close. Oh, there we go there. No, it's still blurry in the magnifying thing. I'll have to look at the settings on that. Suffice to say, we've got topics coming out of my right forefinger. Because they have to come out somewhere. You don't want them coming out of my arse. And apparently it's a problem if they come out of my mouth as well. So yes, they come out from under my fingernails. They leak out from under my fingernails. If you were reasonable, you'd allow them to at least leak out of my sweat pores. But no, you want me wearing some sort of deodorant that blocks everything. Because God forbid you should let anything out of your body through the pores or the arse or the mouth or anything else. Oh, you don't mind words coming out of my mouth. You're fine with that. You'd probably prefer if I wrote them down and had a robot speak them. A text-to-voice thing. Because you really don't want to listen to bodily sounds out of anyone. Because you do realise you're being a little unreasonable. You think any voice that you hear coming out of a human being, that's bodily sounds. It's as bad as farting or belching. These words, these are sounds coming out of someone's body. And you just think, Christ, though, I don't have the capacity to listen to any of that. It's like fingernails scraping on the wall to me. Voices coming out of someone's mouth through their vocal cords. I don't want to listen to that. I'd much rather just have us put down into text and then have a specially selected voice from Google or something read it to me in a robot voice. And I can understand that. There's a lot of people now, they don't listen to the news because they can't stand to listen to whoever's in charge, whatever shit is coming out of his mouth. So they just say, oh, I'll read it on Twitter or something. But no, you've taken it a bit far now. You can't stand to listen to anyone's voice at all. You're thinking, no, those are bodily sounds. Some fella recording bodily sounds, a whole stream of them for 40 or 50 minutes most of the time. Just bodily sounds coming out of his mouth and spewing forth. He does a bit of processing and he edits out anything that sounds too disgusting. But no, it's still all bodily noises. Unless it's complete silence, then there's bodily noises involved. Voice, speech is a bodily noise. Well, I would argue, could I make this sound with my arse? No, I couldn't. So that means it's a far superior bodily noise. It's sophisticated. It's almost, now I can't sing, but I would say if part of your body can speak, and other parts of your body that make bodily noises can't speak. That's impressive. If I could sing, that would be more impressive than anything I do through speech. So if I can speak, that in itself is more impressive than anything else I can do through any part of my body. I suppose maybe there's people who can speak through their other orifices. Maybe there are. I don't see why not. You see all these videos on TikTok all the time about these people. Oh, they show videos of their cats making noises that they claim are words. They claim that the cats are saying something, but they're not really. They're making a noise that sounds like words. I don't think I've ever come across on TikTok a human being who's claimed to be able to speak through a different orifice. Now, I know you don't want to hear them talking through their arse, because people would just go, that fella's talking through his arse, and the phrase talking through your arse itself carries baggage. But no, if they could talk through their sweat glands or through their belly fat or something, or I suppose there isn't really any other orifice you could do it through. Through your nose, I suppose, would be the most likely. If you were going to be able to form words with some other part of your body than your mouth, I think the nose would be most likely. If you were flexible enough and had the right muscles, you could contort it into different shapes that form noises. Understandably, people wouldn't want to listen to that. So I suppose that's why you don't hear about it or see it on TikTok. Because on TikTok, it's all about people wanting viewers. And they're not going to do something that's so disgusting that no one wants to watch it. Because you will go, no, block, block, block. Although now that you mention it, I've been a TikTok user for several months now and I still haven't figured out how to block something. So there's that. Well, no, they'll have their cat and their cat is making some weird contortion of a meow. And they'll say, oh, look, it sounds like the cat is saying anti-disestablishmentarianism for the win or something. And true enough, when you go and watch the video, you'll admit it does sound like the cat is saying anti-disestablishmentarianism for the win. But it's not really, it's just a coincidence. It's all just a coincidence. All just a coincidence.
Into your head.
I got an email from, I think it was Dropbox. You know the usual, a new device is connected to your thing or a new thing is logged into your thing and it goes, is that you? Was this you? So I clicked, yes, this was me. And it told me to wait, so I waited with bated breath. And then gave me the news that says, yep, that's you. And you might think that's nonsense. That's just some nonsense and drivel that some computer thing has done to look responsible and try to look like you're not giving away all your money and identity to someone else. They're trying to go, oh, look at this. We've got you covered. We cover your arse. We're watching your back and we're covering your arse. If there's a new login to your account, we email you and say, someone's logged into your account, was this you? And then you go, yes, it was me. And then they say, yes, that's you. And you have a little animated tick mark. I find that very satisfying for one thing. We're conditioned in this country that the tick marks are something good. When you went to school, if you did something right on your homework, the teacher would come along and put a little tick mark, like the Nike swoosh. But they were doing that long before Nike, I'll have you know. Nike didn't invent that. In fact, I would argue they copied it and built upon it. I'm not saying they stole it. I'm sure it was public domain. The tick mark that teachers put on things, that was either public domain or else it was, I suppose maybe it could be property of whichever country's Department of Education first sanctioned its use. But that's not private property, that's public property. So I suppose if you want to steal it to use it on your running shoes, that's perfectly fine. I think it's great. You get a big tick mark on your screen, all animated, and you think, yes, I'm approved by the original Dropbox, and not the other Dropbox either. There's another Dropbox that comes as part of my Libsyn podcast hosting. They call it Dropbox, and then you go in and look and see what it is. They say, this is called Dropbox. Now, it's not to be confused with the thing that's called Dropbox, that is Dropbox, that's run by Dropbox. No, or even another thing called Dropbox for no reason. And you go and drop the stuff there for later publication or something. Now, I've inadvertently done the same thing myself with the concept of Into Your Head Shorts. I made a YouTube channel called Into Your Head Shorts. But then YouTube did a thing where they said, oh, we've got a type of video now that's automatically designated as shorts. So half of my Into Your Head shorts are being automatically designated as YouTube shorts. and the other half are being automatically designated as normal YouTube videos. So it's making a cat's breakfast of my channel, and I find that a bit much. I'm not going to rename them. YouTube needs to rename its things. I suppose I should feel satisfied by that, because I came up with this name, Into Your Head Shorts, and YouTube independently came up with the name Shorts for short videos about 10 years ago. I suppose I should feel satisfied. Great minds think alike. But shit minds think alike too, that's the problem. Now that I think about it, wasn't Google founded by two brothers? Presumably they either think alike or they think as opposites. Maybe one of them is very shit and one of them is amazing, and they have their arguments and fight it out and they come up with something mediocre as a compromise. Mediocre but functional. Maybe that's what you want. Everything doesn't need to be fantastic. Everything needs to be reliable. If you had plumbers working in pairs, installing your toilet, you wouldn't have the most amazing flush ever. But you'd have a flush that was functional and worked and was reliable because they compromised. One of them would be saying, oh, let's just make it shit. I mean, it's a toilet, it's appropriate to be shit. And then the other brother will be going, no, let's do things well. I want a fantastic flush system that rains down like one of those hurricanes that's blowing bits of America away every month now. We want a flush that rains down like that, but somehow also doesn't waste any water. It does this using 3 drops that it recycles. Every time you press the flush button, and then the other fellow will interrupt, of course. He'll say, wait, excuse me, the flush button, those are disgusting. The flush buttons are disgusting. Let's go back to levers. They were perfectly good. In fact, they were much better. Ironically, the lever that they used to have on toilets here, before they redesigned them to be less wasteful or something, there used to be a lever on the toilet. You could press it 3 or 4 times, the handle thing, you just turn it 3 or 4 times. It's very satisfying. I hope I haven't got that wrong now. Maybe Google wasn't founded by brothers at all. I think it was though. Wasn't there the Google brothers? I don't know their first names. In fact, I don't think either of them were called Google. They just came up with that name. They said, we're going to call this Google. Anyway, this toilet, you press the button and 3 drops come out. So the 3 drops go back in again and recycle themselves, and it somehow turns into a huge gush of flushing water of the type you could get. You know that moon they found? I think it's the moon of some other planet that they found water on. There's water inside it and they're all excited. If you could let all that water out in one go into space, that would be like the flush you get from this. A bit pointless, I suppose, if it's in a vacuum. No, wait a minute though. If you have a vacuum, you don't need to flush it at all. You just suck it all out. I say, now that sounds disgusting when they say suck it all out. It's a vacuum. It's being sucked through the vacuum. Someone isn't having to consume the contents of your toilet. Don't worry. If you can find a way to recycle it to that degree, you're going to have to if you want to live on the moon. Let's be honest. If you're going to live on the moon or another planet, you're going to have a system whereby everything, absolutely everything, is recycled. So you're going to be eating your own shit and drinking your own piss. And we all know what happens if you do that too much, because we saw it on anyone who's watched episodes of the show I Shouldn't Be Alive. People who have small plane crashes in deserts, or people who get stuck and break their legs on mountains and they end up having to drink their own piss. Eventually, you drink your own piss and you drink it again and again and again, and it ends up poisoning you. You can't do it forever. And that's the problem you'll find if you go to another planet. I suppose maybe you can recycle it somehow. I wonder which is preferable. Eating your own vomit or waiting until it's being digested and then eating it. Eating your own vomit would be more nutritious the second time, but that means the first time you eat it, it's not giving you anything at all. You're just holding off the nutrition until the second time you eat it. In the other instance, if you eat it and let it digest, then you're getting all the benefits the first time before you recycle it. So I suppose there's that. I suppose with these space things, that's not really what they're proposing. They're having some system whereby everything from the toilet goes into some complicated thing and it somehow gets recycled and you end up getting drinking water back out of it, and it's not really the same as drinking your own piss. So I suppose there's that. But that's wasteful when you just eat your own vomit. You just throw up straight into the fridge. Well, you're going to do that. Give everyone a separate bowl, separate shelf in the fridge, separate bowl. You have a separate bowl with your name in it that you vomit into. And then when you go back to have something to eat, you never eat out of that bowl. You eat out of someone else's. Because there's no point eating the same nutrition over and over again. It's the same principle that applies to arable farming. If you plant green beans in one field one year, you don't plant your green beans in the same field the next year. You rotate your crops. You put potatoes the next year. You put carrots the next year. And you rotate them to different fields because each item uses different amounts of nutrition, has different needs, it extracts different nutrition from the ground. The same is true of vomiting in the bowl in the fridge. You're vomiting into the bowl. You don't eat your own vomit, that's counterproductive. You're far more likely to get some use to you. Make sure you're always eating someone else's vomit. Now you might think that's disgusting. Well, it's disgusting for them too. But you're trying to survive on another planet. If you don't like it, go and invent something. Go and invent something. What have you invented today? You're living on another planet. You're complaining about the system. You're complaining about how the fridge works. You're like some fucking student living in their flat and you're complaining about what the other people put in their fridge. No, you're supposed to be starting a new colony here. You haven't got time to sit around worrying about what's in the bowls in the fridge. Get on with it. You join me at a tremendously exciting moment. This episode of Into Your Head is drawing to a close. Any minute now you'll hear the closing music fade in. You'll hear me say something clever or interesting and the music will fade in. And it'll sound like I'm a professional radio host who talks over the closing music. It'll sound very impressive. I'll be saying something and then it'll end and it'll sound like I'm ending just as the music swells up to the part that you want to hear. But no, it's all fake. Well, I think we all know it's all fake. I do that in post. I go in there, I draw a little line for the volume and I fade that up. And half the time I make a hames of it anyway. Well, we all know that. But we fool ourselves. We think, oh, I'm making a production here. It's like a program. It's like something that's been put out on a professional broadcaster who for some reason is able to set aside 45 minutes at random times in its schedule, approximately whenever one of its creators has enough energy drink to get going. And they say, I'm going to make another episode of this now. I don't know what day it'll go out. We don't have a schedule, but I try to do 3 or 4 a month. Is that okay with you? And of course the program director will say, that's fine. But whatever you do, make damn sure to Christ as hell that you have a closing music that swells up just as you reach the final word of the final segment, because that's important for some reason. And I'm inclined to agree that that's a load of bollocks. But who am I agreeing with? I'm agreeing with myself. That seems a bit egotistic. So no, I'm not going to say that I agree with myself, but I do. We all know. It's like the consciousness thing earlier. There's consciousness and there's self-consciousness. I agree. But I'm not going to go so far as to be self-conscious of my agreeing and say, I agree with myself there. For one thing, that's not what self-consciousness means. That's a bastardization of the whole philosophical concept of self-consciousness. At least I think it is anyway. I've read 1 or 2 books about consciousness, half of which I didn't understand and half of which I barely agreed with, and half of which I agreed with a bit too much. There's such a thing as reading too many books, you know. Now I've read, according to my... By the way, this is not a sponsored link or anything. They're not a sponsor. According to my Audible link, in the past 3 years or so, I've listened to about 250 audiobooks. And most of them have been a load of shit. But the only way you determine whether you think that it's a load of shit or not is if you read. And I read. Anyway, that's probably neither here nor there. I think we can safely say that we've approached the end of the programme. I hope it's not the last programme of the year, because I don't want to end it like this. For one thing, it's about it'll be about the 17th of December when I put this out, so this better not be the last of the year, because I don't want that degenerating into a podcast that just does 2 episodes in the whole of December. That's not a thing. That's no way to do anything. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens, won't we? Won't we? We'll see what happens. I just have to figure out how to conclude this now. I think the way we'll conclude this now is by doing the following thing.